Motown Rundown. Welcome back. It's Wednesday, February 21st. This is like the really weird time in the sports season where this is the lull of all lulls. Like you
It's
have
the
double
thing is,
all-star break.
Rabs, I want to stop you because I'm a big time sports calendar guy. As a college basketball guy, this is peak college basketball season. So the
Yeah.
problem is our team sucks. So
Oh,
Yeah, but I'm saying in the grand scheme of the sports calendar, would you not agree that this is like probably the
no,
slowest time of the year?
it's
No?
like this, and
Oh.
well, July.
no, I would say the summer when you get in that like
Yeah,
summer part
July.
when it's just baseball.
Yeah. Okay, that's fair. That's fair. I guess in our terms, though, you're right. As far as college hoops are concerned, I mean, I actually did watch that whole Iowa game, but in the grand
No,
scheme of
I hear
Detroit
Rabs, I
sports,
hear you. What
it's
it's a
tough.
little come down from football because football is so elevated now. Like
Hmm.
like when we were younger, I don't feel like it was like this. Where
Maybe not. I don't know.
where it's like football and then there's everything else. You know what I mean?
Well,
It
yeah,
it
that's
You
because
know,
honestly feels
yeah,
like
you're
it.
you're right. That's because like
Yeah,
social media's taken over, and that's all anyone cares about now. So it's
it's
just
crazy.
yeah,
yeah,
you're right.
football is beyond king. I will say too, this has been a pretty hot button radio topic this last week or so with the NHL and NBA All-Star games, and I guess on the heels of the Pro Bowl, which was a while ago now. But I remember being a kid, I loved watching the All-Star games. I didn't watch
NBA All-Star
really,
game used to be awesome.
yeah, I really didn't watch like any of the All-Star games at all this year. And someone made the comment that called in and was like, All-Star games are for kids. And when I thought about it for a second, I was like, it was pretty fucking sweet watching all-star games as a kid. I have no interest now. Like to me, it's almost like it's a break in the action from watching my teams all the time. I use that as a time of like, all right, everyone needs to get healthy, take your vacation, see your family, and move on. But
Well,
I
NBA
don't know.
All-Star weekend for me at least, as growing up and the Pistons were fucking awesome. That was legit one of my favorite weekends on the sports calendar because I loved everything about NBA All-Star weekend. I love that it's on TNT. You got Chuck and like Kenny. I used to love it. It's just not the same anymore. Um, the three-point competition's still solid. The stills competition they've completely ruined. It used to be like very fun to watch that, and they didn't they basically gone to a team concept and it sucks. The dunk contest, think about the dunk contest, everyone's like, oh, it's dead. It's dead until it's awesome again. You know what I mean? Like until you get one good dunk contest, you're like, this is fucking awesome. And like the problem is they don't have they don't have star power. They don't have yeah, that's the problem. So
Yeah, there's G League players in these
yeah, like
competitions.
it would be cool if Mac McClung was like a top 25 player in the league. You know what I mean? Like the
Yeah,
stuff he was doing, everyone would say that would be a great dunk contest. But when you got that and you got Obi Toppin's brother in it, but honestly, I think MLB does a good job. I actually think the NHL does a good job with their All Star game. I actually
NHL
think
does a
Yeah,
great job.
it's been better.
the thing about the NBA one that sucks is it truly used to be the best one by like the MLB one when they were playing for home field advantage was awesome and like actually like mattered and people will be like it's a dumb rule which it was but I loved it. Um but the NBA one, seriously, like a core memory of me as a child was watching when the Pistons had four All Stars on that East team, and they all
Yes.
came in
Yeah, I had
together.
a
In
poster.
'06 was that
Yeah,
'06?
it's like
Yeah,
legit. That was like one of my favorite. Like as a kid, I was so jacked up to watch that game, and
and they
I
locked
think you're
up.
right, Ravs, that it's it's probably just meant for kids, but like the NBA All Star game is like a joke. They like legit need to figure it out, and they kind of had this with the NHL where they reinvented it and they went to like the 3-on-3 and all that. You know what I mean? Like they're gonna have to reinvent it
Yeah,
because what they did on Sunday was embarrassing. And the thing that sucks about it is basketball is one of those sports like when you play pickup basketball, like you can show some effort. You know what I mean? You don't have to like go balls to the walls. It's like yeah, all these guys play basketball all summer. That doesn't matter. But when it's the All Star game against the best players, they can't try like at all. It's bizarre.
I'm picturing Collins and I am West or no, I am East.
in a
Excuse me.
in a long
No,
sleeve
because
dry fit.
I no, I saw him one time. He was wearing like a neon orange like tri-fit t-shirt and just shooting corner threes. And
My
Colin,
Jordan
this
dry
is when
fit. I
you-
don't even know where that is. It was like the weirdest shirt I ever had.
this is amazing.
Collins can shoot.
Collins can shoot. That's why it was great. But I think by like 2024 standards, the world we live in, I feel like the NHL is the standard now for the All-Star game and All-Star experience. Like MLB was great when they did that, Collins. The
I
problem
still
with
think
MLB,
the home run derby plays.
the home
I
run derby,
still love the home run derby.
yes, it's amazing. And I think the only thing that hurts MLB All-Star week or weekend, whatever they call it, is the fact that every team has to be represented, which I think is kind of unique and cool. But like that's how you get like
I
who
think
did
the
we have?
NHL is like that too, though, isn't it?
We had Joe Jimenez
Yeah.
a couple years ago. That was like
Yeah,
It
MLB
is.
is weird. It's a lot easier in hockey because I think hockey there's more stars everywhere. Like you get justify having an
smaller
all-star on every
teams,
team.
smaller teams.
But,
So yeah,
like baseball, there's some years when your team is just god awful, and you're right. Joe Jimenez is making 2 all-star games.
and Greg Soto and Michael Lorenzen. Like if
Yeah.
you don't have an all-star,
Lorenzen, that was bizarre. The fact that they didn't take Foley over Lorenzen was like bizarre. That was legit trade bait.
well, and then
the Tigers like we need to trade this guy. He's an all-star.
even better too is the fact that Lorenzen came in. I think it was like the 7th, and he went like 1, 2, 3. He was like lights out.
Yeah, he was
is Lorenzen still in the Phillies?
I
No
don't
clue.
know. That's a good question. I don't care anymore.
Yeah.
That's a Michael Lorenzen is nothing more than a trivia question answered. That'll be a great question. Who represented the Tigers in the 2023 All-Star game?
Seriously. Did you
That's
like
about it.
Lorenzen Rams? That seems like a guy you would like.
Yeah, I did. Especially like off the field. I think I used to watch a lot of his YouTube videos because he does a lot of like plyometrics, like weird stuff to get his body prepared and stuff. And I think there's some
Why are
story.
you watching that?
I don't know. I just try to keep my body right.
I got this beer league hockey game. I gotta be.
I actually did. Did you guys? Oh yeah, I always send you guys my post game press conferences. We're on a 5-game heater. The Young Bucks are. I potted my first one of the year last night. But
what is the vibe in your beer league?
It's kind of it's hit or miss. There's like, it just depends. There's a couple teams that are like us in terms of we're comprised of mostly like average to good high school hockey players that just love to play. We like hanging out with each other. We have one kid that played D1 college hockey, another kid that played like high level juniors that kind of carry the load for us these days. But you just get teams like some guys care too much. Some guys should probably be playing in the league up because they try too hard. And then that definitely brings upon conflict. Like I think we do lead the league in penalty minutes because we get into a lot of altercations. But it's just a matter of like, because we're out there trying to play, and you got a guy giving you a stick or like bumping you off the puck, and then we don't do a very good job of de-escalating. If anything,
Is
we escalate
Champ on the team, or is he still in Cleveland?
No, Champ's in Cleveland. He's I would guess you could call him a part of our taxi squad, but that's the thing, though, is you find yourself in those situations where, like, I don't think Champ has played in a hockey game since he last played with us last fall. And so if he were to strap the skates on and try to play, like, it'd be miserable. There's no worse feeling than, like, not having played for a long period of time and you try to come back and play. So he's on the taxi squad. But we're on a 5-game heater here, 2 games left to play before the playoffs. So, but it's fine. It's like we play, like sometimes these games, though, we played at 11:15 last night. And like I'm not getting home till 12:45. I unpack my bag to 1 o'clock, try to have some tea to get me to sleep. And I'm watching reels on my phone till 3:30, waking up late. It's not conducive to a healthy lifestyle. But anyway, I digress. I was going to say something too. I don't know. Well, we'll fucking just get into it. Pardon my French, but
yeah.
I feel like there's reason to probably cover all 4 teams. We did kind of like tease a Lions season wrap up, which I think is probably more appropriate to fold into like draft talk, because once things get situated,
you're probably right.
like things need to get situated. The only thing that really happened, I guess, that Trent mentioned, Tracy Walker was released by the Lions after 6 years with the team. That was bittersweet. That was a Bob Quinn pick, and so I do have a hard time being upset with, and it's funny because I do want to talk about the fact of Michael Rasmussen, who was extended by the Red Wings, which we'll talk about today, who was drafted by Ken Holland. But I have a hard time being upset when guys that were not drafted or brought into this team with the current regime get released. But Tracy Walker, I think, was a fan favorite for a lot of people. It just seemed like he kind of struggled with injury issues for a little bit and maybe wasn't really the same, and you couldn't really lean on him the way that you maybe could have in the past. So this is a scenario right now. I'm very much with Brad Holmes in that like Steve Yzerman mindset where it's like every single year the team has gotten better. I kind of understand the vision that you're going for. Do what you have to do as long as it's producing wins. So I don't know. And people were commenting about this of, oh, this gives them cap space to go to re-sign CJ Gardner Johnson.
Trent,
Which, like,
do you have the exact number? What is it? 6.5?
I think it's 8.
Something substantial.
I believe it's 8 million. Yeah.
But like, I don't know if that's the mindset. Like, I would probably look at you and be like, any money that's left on the table should be going to Jonah Jackson. So make that happen, please. So I don't know. And that's why I say, like, there's no, like, the beauty about what the Lions did this season is that we got to progressively talk about the Lions in bits week after week after week until you got to the second to last week of the season. Obviously, we were all heartbroken. We talked about the game. And now that you're officially fully into the offseason, there's a lot of things that have to shake out with free agency and who's going to stay with this team. What are they going to do in the draft? So I would think with the draft being in April, at the end of April here in Detroit, that will be a more appropriate time for us to talk about off-season moves.
We should try to get credentialed for the draft. We should put in media pass requests.
Dude, I don't know how you can, dude.
I'm not doing that. I'm getting hammered at that point.
My dad doesn't want me to go to the draft because he thinks there's going to be some, unfortunately, you can't go to any kind of gathering these days. And he's like, I don't know if you should be going down there.
What happened in Kansas City, awful and stuff and like terrible. But didn't they say it wasn't like a planned thing? Like something.
It was like an altercation and they just decided to start shooting people.
Which is ridiculous. But still.
Yeah.
So quick before we move on, because I want to give my little ode to Tracy Walker, and this is very, very, very tongue in cheek because I remember I think it was our second year doing the podcast together. So this is like pre-pandemic, long time ago. We were all still students, and he changed if you remember, his number rookie year was 47, and then he changed it to 21. And Collins was like, "I'm in on Tracy Walker" because he changed his number.
I do remember that.
He actually looks like a safety now. So that's just a little nugget of Motown Rundown lore that, Tracy Walker.
That's a fact. I stand by that.
I think we were all on board with you. I don't think anyone disagreed. But anytime a guy's here for 6 years, a lot of the credit for this run was given to the new guys that were brought in: Jahmyr Gibbs, J-Mo, Jared Goff, of course, Penei Sewell, all those guys. But you do have to have a soft spot for the very few and far between guys who are from the regime before. The Jalen Reeves-Maybin, the Jonah Jackson, the Taylor Decker. So Tracy Walker was one of those guys. So shout out to him. I wish him well. As far as the move to cut Tracy, it makes sense because you have Brian Branch coming up, the emergence of Ifeatu Melifonwu, who, of course, was a hero at the end of the season. It just makes sense. You're going to try to bring back CJ Gardner Johnson, so it makes sense. So that's all. You wish Tracy the best, and that's a guy who might come back in 4 years to retire here or something like that. And he's just like a special teamer on the Lions, and you love it, and everyone will love him. Yeah,
Collins mentioned that there's discussion that John Kaminsky might also be cut too.
Yeah, he was not good this year. He wasn't good at all.
He really wasn't.
So we'll see. I mean, I don't know. If you see Kaminsky get caught, I think that's a sign of them trying to maybe make a splashy move in free agency, which I kind of expect them to make. And we'll talk about that when that happens. But I expect them to do something with their draft capital, or I just expect the Lions to be very active this offseason, because when you go to the NFC championship game and you really haven't pushed any of your chips in, you think about your window and all that stuff, but at the same time, I always say this with NFL, windows close pretty quickly unless you have a generational player. So I mean, I don't know. We'll see.
Well, let me ask you guys both of this, and maybe this is where we can leave Lions talk for now, so at least that we cover it. If there is one position group that you feel like has to be at the forefront of what this team does, what needs to be addressed, and where would you like to see it addressed between free agency, trade, draft?
I think they
And
need someone at every level of the defense, both up front, linebacker, and back. But most importantly is up front, no doubt. Because Hutch he doubled his pressures from last season. He just didn't get home a whole lot because he didn't quite have that companion over there. And we say it all the time. We used to say it a lot during the Patricia era. It doesn't matter how good your corners are if you can't get any pressure. So corner is definitely a need, but I would put edge rusher number one to answer your question.
I agree with Trent. I think you need more on the edge. I actually don't think that their interior defensive line is like actually decent. Like I thought McNeil had a really, really good year.
McNeil's awesome.
I thought Pastoral had a pretty good year too. So the interior guys I didn't think were that bad. I think you still need probably another rotational guy there. I sneaky think they might draft a guard a little bit higher than people think. I'm kind of the opposite opinion of you, Rabs, where I wouldn't pay Jonah Jackson. I didn't think he was all that good this year.
He's been hurt too.
I'm not going to act like I'm some offensive line genius and stuff like that. But when you have like a player like Rad now and you're going to have to pay Sewell, I think you got to take chances on maybe guard. You know what I mean? Instead of investing a ton of money in the guard position, I'd rather invest my money in the tackle and center position. And they're already invested a lot of money into Taylor Decker. So, and maybe take a swing on some young guys. I think that's probably the move. But I think cornerback and edge rusher 1 and 2. Because Sutton fell apart. I still think he could be a solid second cornerback. They need to go out, I don't know, in free agency or in the draft and get a high level guy at cornerback.
People want Sutton dead. That was like the thing I was seeing when the Lions posted about Tracy Walker being released. Everyone in the comments was like, "Do Sutton next." I'm like, "What the fuck?"
That's just the loudest.
He was so bad last month and a half of the year.
He was, but
I think
we would all agree. I mean, like
I don't think it's all his fault. I think it's a combination of everything. But I'm just saying he did.
No, I literally remember being on this podcast being like, I'll tell you who the best player on this team is, Cam Sutton. Those words came out of my mouth earlier this year. But as far as position group, I mean, yes, it's stating the obvious. I think to have another true defensive end that can get to the quarterback opposite Hutch would be tremendous. But Collins, I don't hate that. And I didn't really think about that in terms of, what the price tag is going to be for Jonah Jackson and the fact that you're going to have to pay Sewell at some point, and who knows what the future looks like for Ragnow and Decker for that matter. I don't know what you guys think about if they bring Graham Glasgow back for another year or two and
why not
keep him. Like I don't have an issue with that, but yeah, I think that could be a sneaky thing that in a very similar way that I think the Lions. Wasn't Frank Ragnow kind of a surprising pick at 20, wasn't it, when they took him? Like, weren't we kind of like, oh, really? Like, that's where they went with that pick? I feel like I could see the Lions doing that in this year's draft. I don't know.
I won't hate it. I
trust whatever they do. I don't really care.
I trust them.
It's also nice. It's a good problem to have that they're picking at 29th and we don't really know what they're going to do instead of picking at like second. And everyone's like, oh, they got to pick Hutch.
Yeah, it doesn't mean much to me. So that's where we can put a pin in Lions talk for now. So between Tigers, Red Wings, Pistons, I guess if we really want to go back, because we did not sit down and really have like a come to Jesus meeting about what the Pistons should do at the trade deadline, which is now come and gone. And we can run you through what happened there. Obviously, it feels like the Pistons haven't played in forever with the All-Star break. I do believe they play tomorrow on the road as the Wings are at home tomorrow. I'm curious to get your guys' opinion. And I remember I went for a nice long walk one day and talked to Trent about what the Pistons did at the deadline, and we both got pretty animated talking about things. But I have truly reached a point, and I've probably said this before in relation to the Pistons, so I apologize for beating a dead horse. I could not be more apathetic towards this team. And that is the worst place to be as a sports fan, because it's one thing to be upset, mad, whatever, interested because you care. And maybe me even getting as worked up as I'm about to do with this situation completely devalues me saying that I am apathetic, because I know I do care deep down. But I do not understand. I don't know what's going on. This is like, for Troy Weaver to go up there, and I don't even know how many times he spoke this year, but his whole speech about
Once.
how, you can't go out and take flyers on these young guys and then sign them to big contracts, which is exactly what he did with Marvin Bagley.
Well, that
And
I will give him credit. I think that was him admitting what he did. That though,
Yeah,
good
he
for
did.
him.
He did. The problem is
that
that
was
I think
the context of that is saying like we made mistakes, which I can
correct.
respect a little bit.
I can respect that, but I think what
Yeah.
Rab's point is, and I think we all agree, is that most GMs don't get to step to the podium and talk about their mistakes. They're usually canned. So
Yeah.
and we all agree
Yeah.
on that. Go ahead, Rabs.
And that's like where, and if we would have had this conversation 2 weeks ago, I'd be fucking foaming at the mouth. But just the fact, like, this team overnight is completely unrecognizable. Like, all these moves that were made, like Archie Diacono, the Pistons trade for Ryan Arcidiacono. Ryan Arcidiacono cut by the Pit. Like, it was the most bizarre, like, swapping, like, expiring contracts for expiring contracts, cutting guys, releasing guys. I can't even tell you, I couldn't even name you the roster outside of Cade Cunningham, Isaiah Stewart, who's in prison, Jaden Ivey, Marcus Sasser, and Asar Thompson, and Jalen Duren. I have no idea who else is on this team, because whatever Troy Weaver's like, and this is what it comes down to for me. You should not be allowed as a general manager to rebuild twice. He was brought in here to rebuild the Pistons, and he fucked it up monumentally, and now he's trying to do it again, but he has acquired no draft picks and no good young players. So please explain to me what he's doing.
This is the one thing, Rab, that me and you disconnect on, and it might be the fact that I watch this team. Their future is still not. Yeah, there's a lot of things.
I'm joking.
It's mostly like based on tie. It's literally our one thing. Our biggest argument is AJ Hinch. I think that's probably
we'll get there. We'll get there.
Yeah. The disconnect there, I completely agree. Like, Weaver's done a bad job and like whatever, and you shouldn't have an opportunity to rebuild twice. I agree with that point. I don't really think he's rebuilding twice. I think they're reconfiguring this team. They have cornerstone guys in there. And they're gonna have to figure out what they want to do with Ivy and Asar. I don't think you trade either of those guys, but they're gonna have to make some roster decisions to make this lineup fit a little better with Cade and Duren. They have good young players. That is my disconnect with you. And that is why, as bad as they've been this year, and as bad as they've been the last 15 years, the last 3 years, they've been in a better spot than they've been in probably since Chauncey, because I truly believe they actually have cornerstone players. Duren is legit 20.
Yep.
Duren's 20. And I think he has another 2 levels. Like, he has the capability to be a really, really good offensive player. Really, really good. Great rebounder. He needs some work on the defensive side of the ball. I think Cade's he's a winning player, 2-way player. I think he's got to improve a little bit with the turnovers. I think he's still a young player. He can work through that. Ivy's supremely talented. I don't know what his role will be. Asar, young rookie, improves his jump shot a little bit. He's going to be an all-star. Like, if he becomes a 30% three-point shooter, he immediately becomes an all-star level player. That's how, like, athletically and defensively he affects games. So, Rabs, you are completely right. The way they managed this roster, the way they overvalued some guys the past 2 years was a joke. But and the problem, there's so much incompetence with the Pistons that I think this gets lost. as bad as they've been, like the future I still think is bright. They have to either fire Weaver or until you get some sort of control on that and front office this and that, where they're having front office meetings on playing Jaden Ivey because Monty won't play him. Like stuff like that happen until you get that stupid shit out. I don't know if they'll ever figure it out. On the moves, I mean, we'll talk about it. Quentin Grimes, I like that player. Young guy, played with Sasser at Houston, good college player. Started at Kansas, actually. First college game ever, roasted Michigan State. We were all in college, if you remember that game. Champions Classic in Kansas.
Yep.
My lawn about Weaver is moron. I hate all the shit that he's – the thing about it, there has been successes in this rebuild. That's where I'm trying to get to. And I don't think he deserves credit for it. I think the one thing he probably deserves credit for is the Jalen Duren move, because that was other than that, basically Ivy was projected to go 3 or 4, and they just took him. Cade Cunningham was the first pick in the draft. I don't think you get credit for that. Asar Thompson,
you did the best you could with the 5th pick. Basically, you got screwed by getting the 5th pick. So then you took Asar Thompson.
I think there was some debate on who would go next between him and like Jarris and like some other, and they took Asar. But I think most people thought the Pistons would take Asar Thompson. So I don't know how much credit you get for that.
I'm with you.
Like, there is bright spots of this rebuild, but Rabs, you're right. I don't think Troy Weaver deserves any of it. And with the pieces that they got, I actually kind of like. I like the Italian guy from the Jazz. I actually think he's a nice piece for what they gave up. The Grimes thing, that was clearly a cap move. The thing that's crazy about all this, they're going to be the number 1 team in the NBA with all this cap space, and I don't know who the fuck they think they're spending it on. That's my biggest head scratcher. They have all this cap space. I have no idea what the fuck they think they're going to do, because they can't trade their first round pick this year. So if I would expect with all this cap space, they're not going to be able to use it in free agency either. No one's coming to Detroit as a free agent, high level player.
I don't think the free agent class is that good either. Like, what are they going to get, Tobias Harris again for the 3rd time?
Probably. That, to be honest, Rabs, that was the point I was getting to. That they're probably going to pay fucking Tobias like 3 for 80 because they have all this money and they have to spend it. So I don't know what the fuck their plan is. The one thing I will push back on, and people were losing their mind, and I think there's a lot of people who didn't watch the Pistons this year were saying with the Bogdanovich and Burks thing. Burks was arguably the worst player in the NBA the first 3 months of the year.
He was terrible.
And he came on there in the last 3 weeks, and he started to play more like himself. Bogdanovich is a good player. I think people were wildly overvaluing him because there was that one report that the Lakers would give up 2 first-round picks for him, which I never thought was true. Like, I truly never – like, I think they would have made that deal. But Bogdanovich is not that good of a player. He's a good player, and I think we overvalued him last year. He had a really nice year last year for the Pistons. But the more you look at it, he can't guard a fly. And you saw that every time they played a game, he'd be nice on the offense. That you can't have him on the floor the last 3 minutes of the game. So he's a rotational player. So that's where it's not like he's like the missing piece to some roster. So that was the one thing I pushed back on with people, and people acting like the future's not bright. Like Duren's 20, Ivy's like 22. I think Cade's probably 21, if I'm guessing. 21, 22. And Asar's 22. Like, they have all these young guys who I think are supremely talented and have showed you a little bit. So I'm not giving up on this core. Like, Rab saying he's empathetic, I get it, and he has all the right. They've been fucking awful the last 15 years. Like, he has every reason to be empathetic. But as someone who like watches it, I enjoy still watching Pistons games because they have young guys and they're actually entertaining to watch play. And you actually, when you watch like Duren and you watch Ivy, you watch Cade, you watch Asar, you're like, oh, this could be something. And I don't know. We'll see. I like Grimes, though. I actually think Grimes is a good move. Everyone hated that move, and they gave up. And the fact that they had to take the Fournier, I've talked for a while, sorry, guys, but the fact that they took the Fournier contract on was the fact that they didn't get their pick back didn't really make a lot of sense because they were taking on Fournier's contract. I thought that, like, they clearly must have really liked Grimes, and I like Grimes. I think he's a perfect fit with this roster. Still, I mean, it is what it is. The Pistons have all this cap space, whatever. Look, they're probably like, fuck it, give us Fournier. But I don't know. I have no idea what they're doing with cap space. That's my one thing. Like, I don't trust him. I don't trust Weaver to do anything with that. Like, if you had a smart GM and you're accumulating all this like assets and all this cap space, and you got some young guys, like if I had Sam Presti, I would feel great. I'm like, oh, we're gonna do something cool this summer, splashy and innovative, and this roster's gonna get better. As I do think the roster got better through the deadline, there's still zero direction what the plan is, because they have the young guys where I think the rest of the year you got to play them as much as you can, give them as many reps as you can. And then this summer you have to adjust, because you cannot be this bad next year. You cannot. That is the problem. Like you saw it in Philly. If you continue to lose like this, even when these guys start to blossom and become great players, in the end, it's not like if you don't have that winning culture, it's not going to matter. So sorry I talked for a while there. It's been a while since we talked Pistons, so I don't know.
No, you're good. You're good. We're just catching up and everything, because a lot has happened, whether it feels like it or not. I'm usually locked into the NBA trade deadline. This year,
this year.
I had I'm not even talking league wide. I'm talking just the Pistons. Like, there were years, I think in 2015, they traded for Tayshaun and Reggie Jackson, and I was like fired up. Like I was bricked up, like excited. You know what I mean? Tayshaun's coming home and Reggie Jackson's a good player. And then like this year, it's like, oh, we got Quentin Grimes. Like, just add him to the list of James Wiseman, Marvin Bagley, Nerlens Noel, just high picks that they go after for literally no reason. But also, we don't need to open this can of worms. Killian Hayes is gone. That's great. But just to zoom out real quick and give I'll try to keep this quick because no one cares. Let's be honest.
No, you don't have to keep it quick.
They're the worst team in the NBA. And Collins hit the nail on the head with a lot of it. But like, I could go so many different directions with it. I believe they have the young cornerstones. I'm with Collins. I love Cade Cunningham. Great player on both ends.
I think Durant. This is another thing. Watching Durant the last month. Offensively, he grabs the ball, takes the ball up, his handle, the feel he has at the free throw line. He's shooting at 78%, something like that.
Yeah,
you can see the potential of him being able to expand his game. I'm starting to think Durant's the cornerstone piece. But go ahead, Trent.
Well, I mean, maybe as the big, I'm with you.
No. I'm just saying he is the last month I've watched the Pistons. I'm like, is he the number one guy actually? Is he the guy that we're going to be talking about as being the guy you throw it into at the end of the games? But I don't know.
Well, yeah. So I'll get it. I'll get into that because I think Jalen Duren is your second best player. I truly believe that. I think Cade's your best player and Duren's your second best player, and that is what you're building around. And in an ideal world, we're talking prime Tony Parker, prime Tim Duncan with those guys, but that's way down the road. So you've got those two who I absolutely love. You've got Asar Thompson, who, Collins, I think you hit the nail on the head when you said they did what they could with that fifth pick. The Pistons had the worst record and got the fifth pick in the lottery. So you essentially at that point, you're just all right, let's just take whoever's left. Asar's been great. The one area where I really, really disagree with you is Jaden Ivey. I don't think he's good. I don't like him. I hate watching him. I never liked that pick. You can go back and listen to our reaction.
We both didn't like it, and I still think
it never made sense from the beginning.
One Trent. That is the one thing, and all his flaws, and he defensively, I don't think he's great. And there's sometimes
he cannot shoot. He can't shoot. He can't defend. He's erratic, and he doesn't fit.
He can. It's not like a Stanley Johnson thing. He can shoot a little bit. You look at his numbers last month and a half. He's been able to shoot the ball from three. He, as a one-on-one player, did you see that statistic where he's number 3 when he's guarded one-on-one? He cannot. He is so quick and dynamic getting to the rim. There's something in there. And Trent, if you're fine with, and like I said this a month ago, I'm fine with them trading him. Yes. I do think he's going to be he is going to be a productive NBA player. So if you want to cash in now, that's fine. But you know that he is going to be what I've seen. If you put him in the right situation, he will be a productive NBA player.
Okay, so Collins, thank you for throwing that in there because that's exactly how I feel. I don't think he's a bad player. That pick never made sense. It doesn't fit with Cade. It doesn't fit with how he plays. I think J.I. is good and fine. He just doesn't fit with the Pistons. That pick never made sense. And now to see Benedict Mathurin absolutely owning him in the Rising Stars Challenge and looking better in both years so far, it pisses me off. And the fact that Jaden Ivey had a good rookie year because Cade got hurt pisses me off even more because now you've got this camp over here that doesn't know ball and they're just chirping about how good Jaden Ivey was his rookie year, and Monty won't play him because he doesn't play defense and he can't reliably shoot and he's an ISO player. So that's all. Outside of that, Monty Williams, I think this whole Pistons team, I'll wrap this up. This whole Pistons team needs a fresh start. And it sucks that we're saying that in February, but I truly believe, I'm with you, Collins. I think if they can put together a decent offseason and turn the page next year, they'll be able to reset the expectations. I think the future's bright. I like the cornerstones they have. I also really like Marcus Sasser. He deserves at least one.
I do too. He's a really nice bench player.
That's the guy that should be Cade Cunningham's running mate for 10, 12 minutes a game when he's, out there, whatever. But Ivy needs to go, and the Pistons just need a fresh start because the morale is so low in that building. And Collins, I'm with you. I think you have your 1 through 6 locked in as far as like a starting 5 and the young guys plus Beef Stew off the bench. I think that's like
by the way, another thing, it seems like everyone around the NBA loves Stewart. Like they always talk about all these like contending teams. I would trade Stewart. I honestly doesn't think he works on this roster. I think people have overvalued him. If you watch him, he's a really weird offensive player.
Yes.
People are acting like he's like some elite shooter. He doesn't really get that many attempts. He's an all right rebounder. He doesn't really have a mid-range game for as good of a he's a good 3-point shooter, but he can't hit like a 15-footer. So and he can't he's not a face-up guy, and especially with Durant, who's more the lob threat, like low post, you kind of need a face-up guy now in the NBA. So I think, and I like Stu, and I think he could work out on like a roster where I think he would be like a great like Luka guy, play with Luka, where he's hustle, pick and pop, just be in the right spots. But when you're asking your 4 to do a little bit more, because I think like the thing about Cade is, he is ball dominant and stuff, and he'll make all these passes, but he moves the ball. The ball moves with the Pistons. It doesn't necessarily stick. You kind of need to have some fluidity. You kind of need a 4 who can be a little bit more offensive minded. And the thing about Stewart is he doesn't give you that much defensively. He can switch on everyone. He's great in the perimeter, but like rim protection, he's not great. So.
Yeah, I'll wrap this up right now because I have so many ways. Collins, you and I could talk about the Pistons for hours because there's just so much to diagnose. And obviously they're like one of the worst teams of all time. And it's so frustrating because they have the young players there. I don't mean to just use the cop-out answer of they need a fresh start, but they really do. Like this season's obviously lost. I would love to win the lottery or get the second pick. And we can talk about all that when we get there. But Rabs, I don't know if you want to stay in LCA and talk about the Wings or whatnot, but we're approaching 20 minutes of Pistons talk, and they don't deserve half of that.
Yeah, no kidding. We can stay at LCA for sure. We can talk about a team that maybe has taken a bit longer. It's maybe the first time we've heard that song from Ryan Collins in a long time, but this is a great spot to be as a podcast and as Detroit Red Wings fans to talk about this team right now that is truly definitively in a playoff race here. I'm trying to think of the last time we talked about the Wings. They had an absolutely outstanding January. I'm trying to think of the number that it was of like they secured 20 of 26 points or something crazy like that.
Out of their last 36, I think they've gotten 26 out of the last, you know what I mean? Like 36 available points, they got 26.
Yeah, and I mean, you look back to some of those games in January. I mean, you immediately start with a 3-game win streak. You drop one to Edmonton, who just ripped off like 15 games in a row. You lose to them in overtime. You salvage that with a win over the Kings. You beat the Leafs. You beat the Panthers in overtime, and the story just continues of stringing together wins, which it always felt like with this Wings team, and I've said this to you guys on this podcast too, that like there's always that looming threat of when is the time going to come where they lose like 6 in a row and they're just absolutely done? And you are now past the point of return where you can't afford to be doing any of that now. And fingers crossed, I don't think that that's territory we're going to have to talk about. But in the last handful of games here, and we talked about this little road swing here, of them going, I guess you can call it the Western Canada trip, even though they snuck a game against the Seattle Kraken in there. Huge win at home in overtime against the Canucks before you hit the road there. Obviously Jake Wallman with his gritty, it was great.
I was
You
about to
love
say,
to
do
see
you
it.
like that, Rabs? I feel like you would hate that.
I don't. I mean, I don't mind. I think to score, it was so fucking funny, dude. Like, have you guys seen Big Daddy
Yeah.
with Adam Sandler? Like, what just it reminds me of the scene when he's sitting down with his kid and he's like kangaroo song, kangaroo song. It's like it's a penalty shot in overtime. It's literally never happens. That's all I kept saying at the arena when that was going on. But
Yeah.
I don't, to be honest with you, I don't give a shit. I don't think it's like this big problem. He literally just dunked on one of the best teams in the league with a penalty shot winner in overtime, so he can do whatever he wants. I'm sure if he wasn't on my team, I would hate it, but nonetheless, Jake Wallman's been outstanding for this team, so I have a hard time giving him any crap. So you start off hot there. You hit your road trip, bludgeoning at the hands of the Oilers, and this is where like when I look at teams in the NHL that have a true chance of winning the Stanley Cup, and the Oilers have had many flaws for the entire of Connor McDavid's career, but like that is a team that you are just not as good as. I'm sorry, you're not as good as the Edmonton Oilers. I
Nope.
would chalk up the Oilers as a team that has a true chance to win the Stanley Cup. And you've lost to teams like that this year. You lost to Dallas 5-4. That Oilers game was tight for a second, but the doors got blown off. And then you come back 2 nights later and you lose to the Canucks 4-1 on the road as well. So as we're sitting there after these two games, now you're kind of starting to sweat a little bit like they have to go beat the Flames here because you cannot afford to come home with no points off this trip. And they go out in on the back of James Reimer of all people, they get a 5-0 win. I think Reimer saw like 38 shots that game. That might have been the game. I don't know if it was that or the Kraken game where Patrick Kane picked up his 800th career assist. But it was a great game to turn things around. And to make matters even better, the game against the Kraken's huge in overtime. You win that one on the stick of Ben Sherratt as a back and forth game. The Wings had control early. I think it was one of those games that was, it might have been 1-0, 1-1, 2-1, 2-2, like one of those back and forth games. But pulled out an excellent win there and a much needed win before they come back home here and they see the Colorado Avalanche back at LCA tomorrow night. I will be boots on the ground for that game. I will also be at Saturday's game against the Blues. So this is an unbelievable stretch for the Red Wings. Just to like, if there's a time, and it's perfect because the Pistons stink, the Tigers are in Lakeland right now. Obviously, the Red Wings and Avalanche rivalry is not anything close to where it used to be, but to watch, I mean, you're going to get to watch Nathan McKinnon, Mikko Rantanen. It's a hell of a team they have. Cale Makar in Colorado, and to have it set up to have you at home ice advantage coming off a 2-game win streak on the road is fantastic. And then you see St. Louis at home, which is a beyond winnable game. You're going to go play the Blackhawks. And then you get into this little stretch here where you can see the Capitals and Islanders, who are two teams that you're going to get both at home, that are both right on your heels in the wild card race. Going to be two of the truly biggest games of the season. And then you follow that up before you hit the road again with the Florida Panthers, who I think are 2 spots ahead of you in the Atlantic Division. So this is going to be an incredible finish to this season. And it seems like with a month and some change left in the year, is it really fair to say that these games are must wins? But the bottom line is in the NHL, it is an incredible league from a parity standpoint because teams get hot, teams get cold. The famous story of the St. Louis Blues being in dead last place, I think at the end of December or January, and they go all the way to win the Stanley Cup. This, like, you just truly never know. And so every game is important here. But if you're a Red Wings fan, you have to love where you're at. You're in a wild card spot as of now. The Bruins have cooled off a bit. The Maple Leafs seem like at any given point in time they can slip up a little bit. You have a better goal differential than Tampa Bay, who's right ahead of you in the wild card and in the division standings. And you've shown that you can compete with all the teams in your division this year, which is the most important thing. So it's going to take a lot for this team to play well enough to string together wins to where they are truly competing for a top 3 spot in their division. But I look at these teams that are around them in the standings, and I mean, I just believe you're a better team than the Islanders and the Capitals and the Penguins. And I wouldn't even go as far to say is that the Sabres are even on anyone's radar to make a playoff push here. But the Devils are a team that are knocking on the door there. They have 55 games played and 60 points to your 64. But I do think the thing that I love about the Wings is their goal differential, which is something that we've harped on this team for so many years of how bad they are defensively. They can't fill the net up. Well, you're looking at a team now that's got 194 goals for and 179 against. So the moral of the story here is we'll kind of move into what this team, in my opinion, needs to do and what needs to be addressed as we go along here. But much improved team from last season that have been playing really good hockey, and if you can stay healthy, I think the Wings are in a good spot. And I guess on the heels of that, as we move further into this season and come down the stretch here, I mean, I'm really pleased with how well the power play has come along, which has been kind of a sticking point for this team's deficiencies for a while. The power play has been much improved. A lot of that you have to thank Patty Kane for, who's been tremendous when he's on the ice, almost a point per game player. And now, of course, the rumbling start of, are you going to extend him? And ultimately, I
Am I
think this comes
crazy, or did
down.
I think his contract went through next year the way it was
No,
structured?
it's just this season. So he'll be a free agent after this year, and we can touch on all that here at the end. And I don't want to get too caught in the weeds of like already looking ahead to contracts and whatnot. I know it's kind of that time of year because the trade deadline is going to be here before you know it, and like they're in the beginning of March, and we'll definitely have another episode or two out before then. And I can't wait to talk trade deadline this season for this team. But the name of the game here for me is defense. I think that this team has shown you, and I know Derek Lalone made some comments that he was looking to add maybe a forward to this team, and I think we talked about that last week. But this team has shown you that they can fill the net. And the thing with the Red Wings that I think when you look at the rest of the league, and we have beat this conversation into the ground of, is Dylan Larkin a number one center? Can he lead a first line forward attack that can match up with the cream of the crop in the league? And as time has gone on and you just watch the way this team plays and where their scoring comes from, they have one of the more balanced scoring attacks in the league. I mean, when you're setting up a fourth line that has Christian Fischer, who scored a couple goals, I think 1 or 2 goals over this stretch, Daniel Sprong, who scored 1 or 2 goals over this road stretch, and Robbie Fabry, who just came back from having a child. Congratulations to him. But like, you look up and down this lineup, and that's where when we talk about this team of like, it's not super flashy. You don't feel like they have this overwhelming superstar talent, but what they do have is depth, and they can beat you lines 1 through 4 because everyone is, for the most part, committed to playing a 200-foot game, which you could not say about this team in the last couple of years with a guy like Philip Zadino, who you're begging, like, dude, can you defend? Like, can we rely on you in the defensive zone? Guys like Pew Suter, who you felt like you maybe weren't getting as much out of as you would have liked. And granted, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that Patrick Kane is some defensive wizard, because he's not. He doesn't really care to play defense. That's fine. He's a rock star. But it's the depth. And again, it's not like high level talent, but it is just this balanced scoring attack to where it doesn't matter that your first line is not fucking McDavid, Draisaitl, Nugent, Hopkins. It doesn't matter that your first line's not, Drew and McKinnon and Rantanen or whatever their line. Like, it doesn't matter, because the bottom line is the Red Wings are confident that they can score on you lines 1 through 4, no matter who they match up with. And so as we look into the trade deadline, in my opinion, this all comes down to defense. I think Shane Gostisbehere has been incredible for this team on the power play. He's a great offensive defenseman. That every now and then, depending on how they cultivate the defensive pairings, I love when him and Oli Mata play together as like that offensive defenseman, the defensive defenseman, and Oli Mata. Justin Hall hasn't been in the lineup in some time now, but to me, it comes down to like the Sherratt and Petrie pairing. I'm sorry, guys, because I know that Dan Petrie is a Tigers legend. Jeff Petrie is fucking awful. It is, and I don't like, and this is where I struggle heavily, and maybe this is where I can kind of wrap things up here. Before I let you guys jump in and do whatever you guys want to do, because I don't want this to just be a me-driven thing here. This is where I don't understand what the plan is for this team, because they take on Jeff Petrie, and I have Cap Friendly pulled up here, and it's my favorite website in the world. Jeff Petrie has one more year after this season. Oli Mata has one more year after this season. They just extended Jake Wallman. I think it was completely well-deserved. But they have Justin Holl for 2 more years. They have Ben Sherratt for 2 more years. The only expiring contract they have outside of Shane Gostisbehere is the Mo Seider, who obviously is a restricted free agent who will be extended. So I just don't know what the plan is, because as we sit here and we're like, where is Simon Edvinsson? Where is Albert Johansson? Where is William Wallinder, who probably has another full year of playing in the AHL before he's ready? And I don't know what the plan is, because if I'm Steve Yzerman, I think Shane Gostisbehere has earned his right to come back here. And even if he's playing in your third pair, or if he's, in and out of the lineup as a 7th defenseman, I'm fine with that. I don't care to watch Justin Holl. I don't care to watch Jeff Petrie. Ben Sherratt's a tough watch some nights too. Granted, he did have the overtime winner the other night, so good for him. I appreciate it. But they lack they lack speed. I don't think that for them. I think as a whole, I don't think they're all that great with the puck in their own zone defensively. The only guy, well, really, I mean, I should say, Shane Gostisbehere, Jake Wallman has shown you some flashes, and Mo Seider, I think, maybe tries to do a bit too much as of late. I think in the last couple weeks to month or so, you've shown where he still has a lot of room for his game to grow, but I don't know what the answer is on the back end. And all I know is you have 7 defensemen who it seems like they can't really figure out who that 7th guy is night in, night out. I can't believe that no one ever looks at Jeff Petrie and is like, dude, you have to sit down for a second. And I get they're only paying him less than $2.5 million over the next 2 years, per year, I should say. But I don't know what the answer is. And like, this to me is not the time to bring up your Edvinssons. It's not the time to bring up your Wallinder. It's not the time to bring up, an Albert Johansson who they have to make a decision on, a Jared McIsaac. Like, they have a couple guys they have to make decisions on when it comes to playing, and like as far as their AHL talent is concerned. And this isn't even me looking at the forwards right now, but at the trade deadline, if I'm Steve Yzerman, you have to go acquire a defenseman. Now there's a lot of talk about the Wings being linked to Noah Hannafin in Calgary, who I think would be a really nice fit. I know, Collins, you said that you would love that move as well.
He's just a big body. They don't really have the thing with their D core. They got some nice players and stuff. They don't like Sider's like really good in D zone and stuff like that, but you don't have a fucking like physical force who can still move the puck a little bit. He's not like a game breaker, but he's like actually dynamic. He can do stuff on both sides of the ice.
I agree. That's a perfect way to put it. I think he is a true, complete two-way defenseman, and I know that the Calgary is kind of looking to sell almost everyone at this point. So Noah Hannafin and then Marcus Peterson. I think it's Peterson. It's not Pettersson. I'm thinking of Elias Pettersson from Pittsburgh, who's like a true shutdown defenseman. I think has a year on his deal left after this year. So that could be another move that the Red Wings go and make. As far as trade pieces for the Wings, and this is where like it gets tough because you don't want to move guys that are a part of this core. And like, I thought a guy truly, and I'll put my hand up, a guy that I thought was going to get moved at the deadline potentially was Michael Rasmussen, who was just signed to a 4-year, $12.3 million contract, which comes out to about 3.2 mil a year. I'll save my thoughts there for a second, but the bottom line is I think you have to look at a guy like maybe Jonathan Berggren, who has unfortunately been kind of buried in the AHL here, and I don't know what the plans are for him. I believe he was I don't know if he was a Steve Yzerman draft pick. Might have been a Ken Holland draft pick. But I thought he looked good in some limited minutes last year with the Wings, and he's been called up maybe a couple times this year and has had maybe a few NHL games. But it just seems like that's a guy that still has a very high ceiling, that's producing at almost, I believe, a point per game in the AHL this year, that I could see being a trade piece that the Wings can send as a viable prospect along with some draft picks. To get a guy like Noah Hannafin or a Marcus Peterson. And outside of that, I mean, I think that Steve Yzerman we really haven't seen that from Steve Yzerman, as far as like they haven't been buyers at any of these trade deadlines. And this might be the first year that they maybe go into this with like a conservative buyership. But before we wrap up, and again, before, as I've been talking for an hour now, before you guys get back in the mix, Michael Rasmussen, to be honest with you guys, I'm not crazy about it. This is another.
Why? He's been great this year.
Yeah, I understand he's been great, but I'm looking more so in the scheme of like,
I've seen this from a lot of wins. You're not alone either.
I guess he at $3.2 million a clip. I suppose the value,
by the way.
Yeah, I suppose the value is there for a guy that's going to play in your bottom six, and he has actually played on the top line, I think, the last couple games with Larkin and DeBrincat. I'm not a huge fan of guys that are 6'5", 6'6" that don't really throw their weight around. I think he is a Anthony Mantha type. I think Anthony Mantha's lazy as fuck, but doesn't have the shot that Mantha does. I will give Michael Rasmussen credit. Let me stop myself before I drag him. His skating has been much improved. He was drafted as a centerman. They tried to play him at center, wasn't really working. They've now moved him to the wing, pretty much exclusively full time. To play that power forward type wing at 6'5", 6'6", I do appreciate the way that he goes and digs pucks and works on the wall. I do think he's really effective on the breakout, given his size and his ability to, again, scrape pucks and exit the zone. His size, I mean, again, tremendous size, and I think the wing is where he belongs. I just maybe get concerned with like some of these prospects that Steve Yzerman has drafted along the way, that I just don't want there to be this clog in the system now where, again, like these Klim Kostins and these Christian Fishers. I love Klim Kostin, by the way. Like, I just don't. At a certain point, I want to see some of this younger talent come up. And Michael Rasmussen's only 23, 24 years old. So I would say, from the way he has produced and progressed, it is a well-deserved raise, and it is a well-deserved contract. I'm happy for him. I am just not the biggest fan of his game. I think he's a little bit soft at 6'6", and he has been very good this year. He was good last year as well. Now that he's solidified his role as a true bottom six forward, and you need guys like that in your lineup, I just look at this Red Wings team and I'm like, they've got a lot of guys that can play in the bottom six. Like, that's just how I view this team. Like, they have a lot of guys that are fringe middle six, mostly bottom six players. And at a certain point, like, you can't rely on Patrick Kane to carry your team in the next 5 years if you don't start finding guys that can play in your top six and make an impact. Like, I don't know if Marco Kasper is going to be expected to be your second line center of the future. I don't have those answers. So fine. Again, Iser plan. Great. The bottom line is they have to fucking figure out this defense in the goaltending situation. Thank God for Alex Lyon, who, by the way, has only played like 60 or 65 NHL games in his career. He's been tremendous for this team this year. I'm pretty sure in the Vancouver and the Edmonton loss, I think he was in net for both of those because Husso got hurt in one of those. Who, I don't even have anything to say about Ville Husso for the time being, but the goaltending situation they got to figure out. But Alex Lyon has been fine so far, but fix the defense, as I've just been rambling. I'll turn it over to you guys
I'm on
before
the
we
same
talk
page.
Tigers.
I think your Lion's been really good. I don't think he's been all right. I think he's been really good, and he's brought stability a little bit. I don't know if you want to make a bet. He's not a guy, to be honest, I can see them making like a long-term investment in. But yeah, I disagree with the Rasmussen thing. I've watched a lot of wins this year. I've actually liked what he's done. And I do think he plays a lot more of a grinder role than he did earlier on in his career. I could think you could say he was soft younger on. I don't really agree with that. I actually think he does bring a little sandpaper to what he does now. And I think you could play him on the top two lines. I'm not saying he's like a perennial player. I don't think he's a bottom six guy. I think you play him on all four lines. I think that's why he's valuable. And and if you've watched the wins this year, they kind of like Larkin and all those guys are obviously getting the most time. They usually kind of roll four lines. It's not this type of thing where it's like it's just Larkin's line and what, like, you know what I mean? Like the last couple of weeks they've kind of moved around pairings. Like I think Raymond and Rasmussen were playing together in that Seattle game. Am I wrong?
My buddy T Wills, who's at the game, number one listener over here. He was like, they fucking rolling 11 forwards because they haven't had the same combination out there twice.
Yeah, it was bizarre. And that Seattle game, that Ole Mata is so lucky they won that fucking game because that was one of the worst penalties at that time in juncture of the game. Just good. An obvious cross check in front of the official. Go right before you go into overtime, but good win. But yeah, that's all I got about the wins. It's exciting. It's fun to be in a playoff race. It's fun. Like Sprong has been such a nice addition. Like I feel like Seattle watching that game was like, fuck. Like why did we give up on this guy? So I don't know.
Yeah, dude, I'm latching onto the Wings hardcore because for a couple of reasons. Number one, Michigan State basketball. We don't need to go down that rabbit hole, but holy shit!
Yesterday
they'll make the tournament and they'll just they'll lose it. They'll lose round one.
We've literally been the same team for 3 years, which is maybe the most frustrating team in sports.
Yeah, so we don't want Collins. We don't need.
I can't talk about it. Yeah, you're right. The problem is if we talked about it, I'll talk about it for an hour and a half.
Right. So we don't need it sane. We don't need to do it. Collins and I need a separate show to just air our grievances on the Pistons and Michigan State hoops. But the Wings, though, man, like one of the hosts that works on the show that I produce, he's a diehard Wings fan. He's from Saginaw, Michigan. How are you? So for that reason, too, I've just kind of been locked into the Wings. And I'm excited to, like Rab said, for this stretch coming up here. It's a stretch of teams that you are either going to be favored to beat or teams that are on your level. So I'm kind of excited to see the quote-unquote springboard into the postseason because I truly do think they look like a playoff team. Granted, I don't know that much about hockey, but they're very, very, very fun to watch. Don't play a whole lot of defense, but they skate fast. And the Wings games, I've never watched a Wings game this season that I've been disappointed in, put it that way. Huge win against the Kraken.
This is going to be a great stretch to watch this team. It's just it's
again, the first win that they've been in a real playoff race.
Yeah, you're going to see the Islanders, you're going to see the Caps, like two teams that are right there in terms of the wild card race. You got a lot more division games left to go and there's a lot of winnable games here. They just have to take care of business and I am so excited for this trade deadline. Like, I can't wait because I just don't – I think they'll be buyers. They have to be conservative because they truly, they need the draft picks. They do. They have to find some more prospects because, truly, I just don't – I think Nate Danielson is going to be fucking unbelievable. And I think that he is going to be everything you thought that Ken Holland thought Michael Rasmussen was going to be. at the centerman position. So I know he's still playing junior hockey right now. So very excited, but you have to manage your draft picks properly. And I really don't know as far as assets that they're willing to like lose. I mean, that's the thing, guys. Like maybe they do flip a Petrie, maybe they do flip a Gostisbehere, maybe they do flip probably not a Sharop, like maybe they do flip Justin Hull and they, now you have room for Simon Edmondson to come up and be in the mix night in, night out at a certain point this season with maybe a little bit over a month left to play in your top six. I don't know. So we'll see. But I think the assets they have are maybe a bit limited. I mean, you have guys like, again, and we can talk contracts till the cows come home, but Joe Veleno needs a contract. Lucas Raymond needs a contract. Mo Sider needs a contract. So we'll see. But Red Wings Avs tomorrow night at LCA. And now we can move on to the Tigers because pitchers and catchers and the whole team now has officially reported for spring training. I'm not sure when their first game is. I think it's coming up a bit here, isn't it? Anyone?
I don't know.
I feel like let me see.
I'm going to be honest. Spring training, I think, is number one on pre-season. I don't give a fuck meter for me.
Well, I'll say this. Now that I'm down in Florida, I've kept an eye a little bit more on it because
that's cool. You have to go to a game and stuff, but like
yeah. No, I've never been like that. But the fact that I'm down here now, I am planning to a couple Tigers games. I'm excited. I don't really know what else to tell you. I don't know when they start Rabs officially, but yes, you're correct. It's like we're in the ballpark
2 days.
now.
They got, I think on Saturday they play the Yankees.
So nobody get hurt. Everyone get their reps in, and then I'll see you on opening day. Because I've been tricked too many times in my life watching spring training that someone's gonna be this fucking all-world player, and they fucking suck. So I don't care. But and the interesting thing about this Tigers thing, since they gave Keith that contract, there's really not a whole lot of positional battles in spring training. Like, know what I mean? Like Keith's gonna be on the team. Like. So anyone who's getting cut or you had some sort of not a ton of guys we've had an attachment to that might get cut or might not be on this roster. So and they already told Job that they're not making the team in Madden. So I don't know, like maybe if you see Malloy somehow like have an unbelievable sprint, they call him up, but I don't think you're going to see like a Keel Badu situation where someone hits 600 and they are forced to bring him up. There's not a lot of guys in this Tigers camp this year like that.
I mean, I think I'm really excited to see how the pitching shakes out this year. I am so excited to see Casey Mize.
Yeah.
And I truly like, this is to me like probably, I don't know how many, I mean, I'm sure he's got plenty of years left under team control with his contract, but I think patience is running very, very thin with Casey Mize, at least for me. Like, and that's kind of the same. And I know he's been hurt, so maybe it's unfair, but like the same kind of goes for Matt Manning. And now that you have a Kenta Maeda, huh?
I'm completely out on Manning. Anyone who
well,
no. I go ahead. Sorry, I cut you off. Go ahead.
But I'm trying to think of their rotation. They'll have what? Flaherty, Mize, Skubal, Maeda,
Manning.
And Manning, that's their five?
Yeah, which I completely disagree with because I think Reese Olson's better than Manning.
Yeah, so that's an interesting point too to have. Like, where do you want to do with Reese Olson? Is that a guy that comes out of the bullpen full time, or I'm sure he'll get some spot starts here and there. So I think between the starting pitching and the relief pitching, guys like Tyler Holton and wherever Olson falls in there, I don't know what they look like for Bo Brisky. Is he still with the organization? Who knows?
I believe he is.
I mean, they, Foley, Lang, it could be looking good. To me, it comes down to bats, man, and that's where, like, I was reading today about where they rank. The Tigers have like the 21st highest payroll in the league, and they're like 30 million below or 50 million below the league average. And I don't know. I don't even really remember as far as free agents are concerned of like who was out there and who they could have got and whatnot. But for like the only
they're all still out there. That's the thing, Rabs.
Well, like I just don't.
None of
I
them have
just
signed.
I just struggle. I struggle with the third, like the fact that someone sent me like, okay, here's how the Tigers rolled out for infield today, and it's like Torque at first, fine, Colt Keith at second base with McKinstry, fine, or no, with Ibanez, and then you have at short, it's like Javy and McKinstry, and then you have at third, it's like Matt Vierling, and I'm just like, is it so hard to fucking address the third base issue? Like, I just don't understand it at all. Like, I don't.
Yeah, I don't love Vierling playing third full time. I like Vierling. I'm not in, like, as an outfielder, as a fourth outfielder, as a guy you kind of hop around the lineup and find him a couple different places to play. But as a permanent third baseman, maybe he made some ginormous improvements in the offseason. I just don't see it. Yeah, they were talking like Rabs. I said this. It was like the first time 97.1 hasn't talked about the Lions in 6 months, and it was like a nice change of pace. I love the Lions. It's kind of hard, like when every topic is about the Lions in the offseason. I'm like, guys, can we there's other stuff going on. I would like to talk about the wins and the Tigers. So
100%.
it's kind
100%.
of nice and refreshing to talk about stuff like this. But you're right. I mean, the problem is this is not a great free agent class. And you don't want to commit a large sum of money to a guy like Chapman, who is an older dude, and to Bellinger, who is a high variance dude, who is an MVP quality player 1 year, and then for 3 years he goes off the face of the planet. And the Cubs signed him for $8 million last year. Now he's looking for 10 years and 250, and that's it. And so I agree with you, Rabs. I wish they would have brought in a professional hitter in this offseason, but there's not really anyone. Like JD, maybe, but that means he's going to your DH.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, but that means he's going to your DH, and Carey's going to have to play every day in the outfield, and I don't think they want to do that.
Have that.
So
look, okay, wait, two things, real quick. I'm very high on Kerry Carpenter as an outfielder. I think he can get there. Number two,
I think he can play in spots. I don't think he's an everyday guy.
Okay, that's fair. I think he should DH probably 2 games a series. He can play right field 1.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. I think he's your everyday DH. But
Collins, I'm more along the lines of you as I think this team needs to more, and this is crazy that we're saying this because it's been a frustrating stretch of 5-6 years since they made the playoffs, longer than that even, of course, but just bet on your young guys. I think they'll all make a step. I really do think Torque's going to take a step. I really do think Green's going to take a step. And then my bigger picture here is if those guys are able to do what they're expected to do, I think Javy fades into the weeds a little bit more. If he can just hit 250 and be a Gold Glove shortstop, then you're not constantly worried about that. So that's all. That's a bigger picture issue. And I'm fired up to see what they look like in the spring. But Collins, I'm with you ultimately. I don't never too high, never too low on spring training. But
yeah,
thank God the Tigers are back. That's the bottom line.
Yeah, I know what the one thing I actually will pay attention to is what Mize looks like, what his velocity is at, and what people are saying about him. But yeah, I'm gonna be pissed if Manning's starting over Reese Olson, but I actually think that's gonna happen. I don't think Matt Manning is very good, and I think he's had very bad luck with injuries and stuff, but that's a part of it, dude. He can't stay healthy. And he's had a couple fluke ones with the liner off the foot. And so last year they were both fluke ones, but still, I don't think his stuff's that good. But I think the problem is he can get you 5 and give up 4 runs. He can do that on a consistent basis. I just think, and Olsen probably could step into a reliever role, and it would make more sense that necessarily. But I think Olsen has such a high ceiling. I would really like to see him get that 5th starting rotation spot. But we'll see what they did. I think they had 6 starters for an extended period of time last year. Maybe they go that route, and I don't know. We'll see.
Well, so RC, let me ask you, which of the young, I know you're kind of out on Manning, but which of the young pitchers, are you most excited to watch this season?
Well, Strubal's a legit Cy Young candidate if he's healthy. So I don't even want to include him. I obviously want to see Mize. I just think Olsen's stuff, what I saw last year, where every start I watched him pitch, I think he has really good command with his fastball. It has movement on it. And I think he has the potential to be a top 3 starter on a good team. Flaherty and Maeda, I think you know what you're going to get out of Maeda. He's going to be a solid guy. He's not going to blow your socks off. Flaherty's a little wild card because he wasn't great last year. I mean, he had highs of being a Cy Young type of dude. We'll see if he can regain it. MLB is weird. It's like goalies and pitchers. You never know what you're going to get with them unless you're a Hall of Fame type of guy. So
I'm going to really struggle to watch Kenta Maeda's slow delivery.
Who cares if he gets people out? I don't care.
Well, Rabs, who's your guy? Who's the guy you're
rather
latching
watch
onto?
Daniel Norris give up BP home runs than watch Maeda go 7 1/3.
Bad development. They didn't develop him.
Too soon on Daniel Norris.
As far as my excitement level, I mean, I gotta tell you, I think this bullpen is going to be unbelievable this year. And I will also say my one stipulation: if Troy Wingenter makes this team, I will not watch this year. He's terrible. He should not make this team.
Okay.
The big guy with the curly hair, fat face.
I'll take your word for it.
He's terrible. I will be watching every Casey Mize start with my face 2 inches from the TV because we can analyze that pick all you want. I mean, he was the best pitcher in college baseball at that point. I get it, and it's a shame that he went through this surgery, but I just hope that with some time now with Chris Fetter, I would hope that he just comes back refreshed and he's in good shape, and they maybe, work on his delivery a little bit and his mechanics so it's not as violent and herky-jerky, and I'm excited to see what he brings to the table. I will tell you, though, I think the highest stock I have in any player on this team is Jack Flaherty. I love Jack Flaherty. And I know that last year he wasn't great, and I think he might have battled some injury last year, but Jack Flaherty, I mean, this could be just such a typical Detroit thing of taking used goods and trying to polish a turd. But he was one of the better pitchers in the league for a couple of years there in St. Louis. I also love the Shelby Miller thing. I love Shelby Miller's story. The Dansby Swanson trade, riddled with injuries.
What is up with you and Shelby Miller?
I think I'm mixed, dude. I think he's a bulldog. I love the way he pitches, and I think that in a reliever role they're going to have him in now. I think he'll be just fine.
This isn't 2016 though.
I know. I just think you're going to love Shelby Miller. There's number 7. It's awesome.
I don't get the guys you.
He wears number 7. It's unbelievable.
You're acting like he's going to be a key part of this bullpen. He's not.
He could be.
It's going to be Foley, Lang, and probably Brisky or some other. I actually don't think. Now that I think about it, I don't think Brisky's on the team.
Hashtag why not Shelby?
Who's the other guy in the bullpen I'm thinking of?
Holton?
Lang.
Vest.
Oh, Will Vest.
Enough.
He was good last year.
Enough of this. They sent him down.
And was great when he came back.
Well, you're not wrong. I'm just laughing because of here's the thing. The ironic thing about all this is that the strength of the Tigers for the last 2-3 years has been the bullpen, which when they were making their World Series runs was the biggest Achilles heel. So that's what makes it a little frustrating and poetically justice. Go ahead, Rab.
Yeah,
sorry.
I honestly feel like I'd rather have it be the other way because it's so frustrating watching a team that can't hit. And I just can't do it again this year. I can't, if Spencer Torkelson's batting 220 4 months into the season, I don't know. I don't know what I'm gonna be able to do. So
I'll probably watch.
Here's my last thing before we hang it up. Are we in or out on Javy Baez this year?
In, all the way in.
I'm not in, but I'm not gonna. There's a weird thing where people are rooting for him to be awful off the bat. You know what I mean? I'm gonna boo.
Well, those people suck. Those people are losers.
No, Javy has been awful. I don't think he's been an asshole or been a douche about the situation. I think he's been quiet. He's handled his business. It's not like he's there's been a lot of whiny ass guys who got paid a lot of money and sucked and then bitch at the fans. I truly don't think he necessarily is it's not his fault we gave him $22 million. It's not his fault that Avila's incompetent. I'm praying. I don't think you're going to see Chicago Cubs Javy, but I also I don't know. It's the vitriol for him. Like he's bad and stuff. And he's been bad. I don't have that in my heart. Like I don't have that hatred for Javy Baez because at the end of the day, I do think he plays hard. I think he has lost something at the plate. And then people have figured out that he can't hit a slider off the plate, and it's a mental thing now.
Well, that's no secret. That's no secret. He anything low and away, he's swinging at, and
no, but the thing about it, Trent, is there used to be, and he did it in his first year actually, where he went on a month tear where he hit 320, and he could carry your offense. He didn't even do that last year. You didn't even see signs of that at the plate. I still think.
Well, go ahead. Sorry.
I hope he does well. I don't think you can expect much out of him. But at the end of that, he seriously can't get worse. He was not a good baseball player last year. He was not a good baseball player last year.
Okay. I like what you said. I like what you said right before that, where he literally can't get worse, because I agree. And you said we're not going to see Chicago Cubs Javy. I think there's a chance we do. I'm not going to predict it, but I definitely think
Cubs Javy, the Tigers are winning the division.
Okay, so put it this way. If Javy Baez is not asked to be the second hitter in your lineup, if he's able to be a 7 or 8 guy in your lineup, do you think that would take any sort of pressure, have any sort of effect on him? Because I do, 100%.
I find it hard to believe that he's batting in the top 4 of this lineup this year. I probably see him.
Okay, that's fair, but he did all year last year. You know what I mean?
No, so I know. He's probably 5 or 6, probably 6 if we're thinking about it now. So, yeah, there's going to be a lot less pressure on him. But at the end of the day, I mean, it's hard for me to be I think things have changed what I saw with him at the plate. And there's been some stuff that he's been hurt and stuff like that. I don't know. I'll see it when I believe it. I think he grades out worse a defender than he really is. I do think he makes a lot of plays up the middle that
he does
save runs and stuff. And there occasionally he throws every ball in the dirt, putting a torque in shitty situations. I understand that. But the end, I do think he's still a plus defensively. And people will argue with me, analytics says, but as a guy who watches them every day, he makes a lot of plays that prevent runs.
He 100% is a plus defender. Anyone who thinks he's not,
people, the analytics don't grade out as that because
I'm with you, Collins. I'm saying
I know. I think the good outweighs the bad defensively. I truly.
If you think Javy is a negative shortstop, then you're just not watching. You're just looking at numbers. So anyways, my last point on this. He's a plus defender. He's going to be great at shortstop. If you can take some pressure off him in the lineup, which I expect the entire Tigers team to do, from Riley Green to Torque to Rabs, what's your guy? The signing they made, Canna? Is that his name?
Oh God, Mark Canhit? Yeah.
Him, Gary Carpenter, sprinkle in a guy here or there, whatever. Javy Baez will be able to. Does it suck that they paid him all this money? Yes, but Collins is exactly right. It's not his fault that he took it. And I think that if the team is able to get off to a decent start and the focus isn't instantly what the hell is wrong with this team in April, Javy will be just fine. That's all I got on that. Sorry. We'll monitor that because that is a hot button issue.
I did see a clip of him at spring training swinging and missing at 2 balls on the dirt in the outside of the plate again, which made me upset. And I don't want to hear that he's in good shape. I'm so sick and tired of being in good shape does not equate to being a good baseball player. Tony Gwynn was fat always. And he was one of the best hitters of all time. So, all right. I think that's it. I don't know if there's anything else to discuss here. We've been going for a while now. We're kind of all caught up on all these teams. So I guess we can look ahead to NHL trade deadline stuff. We'll monitor some spring training things, just as Colin said. Hopefully everyone stays healthy. But that is all for today's episode of the Motown Rundown. For Trent Bailey and Ryan Collins, I am Ryan Rabinowitz. You can listen to all of our shows on Spotify. Give us a follow so you don't miss an episode. We're also on Facebook at the Motown Rundown page. You can also join the conversation on Twitter at Motown_Rundown. And we are on YouTube. All of our recordings will be posted on there the day after we record. So you can see our faces and watch us on screen as you listen. And that's it. Thank you guys for listening. We love you very much. We'll see you next time.